When did a routine medical appointment turn into your worst nightmare? My husband had been holding my hand during the ultrasound when the hives started spreading up my arm like wildfire. We were 7 months pregnant and everything had been perfect until Josh squeezed my fingers and my skin erupted in angry red welts. The reaction burned like acid under my skin, and the technician stopped talking mid-sentence to stare at my swelling arm. Josh immediately let go, but the welts kept spreading up to my shoulder and across my chest. The burning sensation followed each welt, and within minutes my throat was closing up. They called the emergency team while Josh stood frozen in the corner looking at his hands like they were covered in poison. The medical team pumped me full of antihistamines while Josh waited outside the room. Every time he came near me, the monitors went insane and my heart rate shot up to dangerous levels. The doctor ran every allergy test imaginable, but the results made no sense at all. She had Josh touch a sterile swab and then touched it to my arm, and within seconds I had fresh hives spreading from that exact spot. The doctor stared at the reaction and said, "You're having an allergic reaction specifically to your husband's skin cells." My blood work confirmed it by showing massive amounts of antibodies, but only against Josh's DNA and nothing else. When Josh tried to sneak into my room that night to hold our baby bump one more time, I woke up screaming. My stomach felt like it was being eaten by fire ants everywhere he'd touched me. The nurse found me clawing at my own skin, trying to get his cells off while Josh stood in the doorway sobbing. He kept saying, "I'm killing you just by loving you," over and over again. The reactions got worse every single day no matter what we tried. I became obsessed with finding the answer and made them test everything Josh touched or used. They tested his deodorant and his car and even the coffee shop he went to every morning, but it was just him and only him. Like my body had decided the father of my child was toxic waste. We tried desperate solutions like having him wear a hazmat suit or giving me immune suppressants strong enough to shut everything down. Nothing worked without putting the baby at risk. His mother had been accusing me of faking it for weeks to keep Josh away from me. I finally snapped and grabbed Josh's hand right in front of her to prove it was real. Within seconds, I was on the floor gasping for air while she screamed for help. The specialist they flew in took one look at my charts and actually laughed out loud. He said, "Someone's pranking me, right, because this is impossible." But then he watched me break out in hives from touching a pen Josh had used. Even being in the same room made my skin crawl with a sensation like insects trying to burst out. My throat would start to swell shut just from breathing the same air he'd been breathing. I tried to power through it one night because I needed him so desperately. I told him to hold me and let whatever happened happen, but within 30 seconds I was convulsing. The baby's heart rate dropped so low they almost did an emergency surgery right there in my room. The worst part was watching Josh pack his things while wearing gloves so nothing would get contaminated. They had to start planning for delivery without him there. When the nurse suggested he could watch through glass, Josh completely lost it. He said, "I'm going to miss my daughter's first breath because my wife's body thinks I'm a disease." And then he punched a hole in the hospital wall. By my 8th month of pregnancy, Josh had to watch my appointments through video calls from his car in the parking lot. Even walking through the same hospital corridors he'd used made me break out in welts all over. The anesthesiologist said putting me under for delivery would be too dangerous because trace amounts of his DNA in the air could kill me while I was unconscious. I begged them to find another way and told them I'd rather die with him there than live without him there. They said they couldn't let a baby lose her mother for a father's presence in the room. Josh recorded himself singing the lullaby we'd picked out months ago, and they played it while I pushed. Hearing his real voice made my blood pressure spike dangerously, but the recording was like a ghost of him that my body would tolerate. When our daughter finally arrived perfect and screaming, I held her up to the window. Josh was pressed against the glass on the other side, crying so hard he couldn't speak. He had to meet his daughter through that window while wearing a mask in case his breath traveled through the vents. The specialist said maybe once my hormones went back to normal after pregnancy, the reaction would stop. But 3 weeks later, when Josh tried to touch my hand through a latex glove, I still felt my skin trying to crawl away from him. Nobody could explain why my body had declared war on the person I loved most. All we could do was exist in separate spaces while raising a child who would grow up watching her parents love each other from across rooms we could never cross.